Okay, sounds good. Uh, should be just a few more minutes. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for being here as well.
they're on their way down right now. So sorry about that.
You guys ready? Sounds good? Okay.
Okay, ready? Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Bill Scott of the San Francisco Police Department. I'm here today with our San Francisco District Attorney, Brooke Jenkins, to announce an update on the vehicle collision that occurred on March 16th, 2024 at Eola Street and Lenox Way, where an entire family of 4 were killed as a result of a vehicle collision. First, before I get into the details, I want to extend my deepest condolences to the friends, family, and loved ones of the Oliveira family and the Ramos Pintos families. This was a horrific incident, and we all know the impact that it had not only on these families, but the entire city of San Francisco. So we want to extend our condolences, not only to the family, but to the friends and loved ones and the community at large, because this was a really tragic and horrific event. The names of the family members are the father, Diego Cardosa de Oliveira. He was 40 years old. The mother, Matilde Moncada Ramos Pintos, was 38 years old. The first son, Joaquim Ramos Pinto de Oliveira, was 1 year old. And the second son, Coway Ramos Pinto de Oliveira, was 3 months old. The San Francisco Police Department Traffic Collision Investigation Unit, or TCIU, have had the lead on this investigation from the onset and have been working very closely with the District Attorney's Office on this investigation. At the time of the incident, the driver of the vehicle was identified as 78-year-old Mary Fong Lau of San Francisco. As a part of the investigation, we've looked at every aspect of the collision, which includes possible impairment of the driver caused by drugs or alcohol, as well as any mechanical failures. We do not have any evidence that impairment or mechanical failure caused this collision. At this time, investigators have developed probable cause to issue an arrest warrant for Lau that was signed by a San Francisco Superior Court judge. Lau is not in custody at this time, but we are presently working with Lau's attorney to bring her into custody, and that is as we speak. Before I introduce our district attorney, I would like to acknowledge a few people. First, the work of the entire Traffic Collision Investigation Unit, or TCIU, led by Lieutenant Joseph Beretta, and our lead investigator, Sergeant Gary Chang. Also, I want to acknowledge the presence of our supervisor for that district, Myrna Melgar, who's been very, very supportive throughout this event, and our Assistant Chief of Operations, David Lazar, and our Acting Assistant Chief, Chief of Staff, Peter Walsh. Also, with the help of our Department of Public Health, there were a lot of people that were severely hurt and traumatized by this incident, and our Department of Public Health really did a lot of work to try to bring some healing to this horrific event and gave services to many in our community, including people who personally knew or were associated with these families. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to introduce our district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, to speak on the arrest charges and the district attorney's portion of this investigation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I too want to first start by extending my condolences to the family and friends of this family. There is nothing more tragic than to watch what happened here. And I know that it has taken some time for this investigation to proceed, but I also want to thank the public and the family for their patience in allowing the police department to conduct a very thorough investigation into this matter to make sure that the charges that we ultimately are going to file now were appropriate and necessary. I also want to just thank the San Francisco Police Department for taking the time to do what they needed to do to flush out this situation. Sometimes when you are under public scrutiny and a lot of pressure, it can make people feel the need to speed things up. And of course, everybody wants to know the outcome, but it's important that these investigations be conducted properly and thoroughly, and they have taken the time to do that. As you've heard from the chief, a part of the investigative process was to flush out alternative causes for why this happened. We wanted to make sure that there was not some type of medical issue that occurred or an issue with the vehicle that could have caused this, which ultimately would have been a defense to any charges in this case. And so it's very important that they be able to look at those issues and make sure that they were not factors in causing this collision. At this time, we have, of course, taken that investigation and reviewed it and have decided to file 4 counts of felony vehicular manslaughter against Ms. Lau for each of the deaths that occurred in this collision. Again, these are felony vehicular manslaughter charges, which is the result of the gross negligence that occurred in causing this collision from our point of view. We are awaiting her arrest and her being taken into custody, and we should see an arraignment not too long after that, but I don't have the timing of that arraignment just yet. But that is where we are, and we will proceed with this case as carefully and as thoughtfully as we would any other. And so again, I thank Supervisor Melgar for being a partner in making sure that the West Portal community understood our care and concern for what happened, and that, again, we have done everything that we could to make sure that we have gotten to this point, which is to be able to file charges as we see necessary as a result of what took place. And so we're happy to answer any questions. Yes, so at this time we have evidence that the vehicle was traveling at excessive speeds, well in excess of the speed limit. And so when you're looking at what caused this collision and these deaths, we have to account for either ordinary negligence, or in this case, we found that it was gross negligence, meaning this was outside of the norm. This isn't, somebody going a few miles over the speed limit. This was excessive speeds and driving in a manner that was not safe and that could reasonably, foreseeably cause death.
What would be the maximum possible penalty for these charges?
At this time, I don't have that on hand, but I will make sure that you get that.
So that was a part of the investigation, and the car was examined. The service records have been examined. There was no indication that malfunction had anything to do with this collision. So part of our investigation is we want to make sure that we look at those types of issues to either confirm or rule that out. And in this case, the investigation ruled out mechanical malfunction.
At this time, we judge all drivers the same, right? If you are a licensed driver in California and you are out on the road, you are held to the same standard of driving. And so we expect all drivers to drive in a safe manner within on our roads. Of course, we expect that to possibly come up during this case, but at this time we have no reason to believe that based on the fact that she was a licensed driver that was somehow an automatic impairment. We allow people who are 78 years old to drive so long as they can pass the driving test, and so at this point that is not a defense to what occurred.
I know you said that you haven't arrested her yet. Where is the holdup there? Is there a belief that she may be somewhere else, out of state or out of country?
No, there's not a belief of that. The holdup is just we're trying to work with her attorneys, but we do plan to take her into custody as soon as we can. She is local. We've confirmed that, and investigators are out right now trying to arrange that arrest.
Question for the chief. When you guys spoke with her and, she was cooperating, did she mention anything that you can release about, sometimes people running buildings, they say they stepped on the gas instead of the brake. Was there anything you can say like that, or no?
Well, what I will say is the investigators did a very thorough and extensive job in looking at the possibilities of, as was asked a minute ago, mechanical failure. Inspections were done, and not by the investigators, but by professionals who do this type of work. Service records were examined, so the statements and the investigation ruled out any type of mechanical failure or anything of that nature. So that's where we are.
I know you said that the investigation was thorough, and that's one of the reasons that it took so much time, but for a lot of people in that community, I think they still might think it took too long. It's been, a few months now. Can you explain why now we're pressing these charges and what maybe was the last link that took that long to get to where we are?
Well, I mean, there's investigative processes, the inspections and those things, they do take time. Mechanical inspections, reports, outside experts, and those types of things. So this happened in March 16th, and now we're in July. So we're talking about 3.5 months. But these types of investigations do take time. And when we had the evidence to take to a magistrate or a judge to get a warrant, and working with our district attorney's office to make sure that we had a sufficient probable cause, we did that right away. But the investigative process does take time.
And if I could just add a little bit to that really quickly. While I understand that some people would judge it on months, when you're talking about what Chief just mentioned, when you have accident reconstruction, when you have a vehicle that has to be inspected, when you have toxicology analysis that has to take place, medical evaluation of the driver, it's a multifaceted investigation that if it is rushed and things are not done thoroughly, I could very well file charges that ultimately I have to dismiss later. And that is what we don't want. We don't want to re-traumatize a family and a community by putting them through a situation where ultimately the case doesn't play out as it should because of things that were not done appropriately on the front end. We want to make sure that it's done correctly. And while there are expectations about timing, all we can do is, as we have done over the last 3 months, is explain to people why this takes so long, and that our hearts are all in wanting to just make sure that we understood what occurred and do our jobs correctly.
Does she have a history of reckless driving? Does she have like a bad driving record, or was this a first offense?
I have no indication that she had any relevant history here.
Chief, you talked about, I know from the community members that I've spoken with, that they were really just broken about this case, and I know, officers and emergency responders had to go to that scene, which must have been gruesome. This scene, how tough has this been for not only the community but the department, because it was an entire family that was out there?
Oh, extremely. I mean, these all tragedies of this nature are tough to deal with, but this one in particular, you know, a whole family and 3-month-old. I mean, just the thought of that, and not to mention the sight of that, is very tough on everybody, not just our officers, but we had all kind of employees from the city that had to respond to that, and the community in general. There's a lot of people out there, and that's where public health came in, and we have support for our officers, and thank goodness that there's a good support network for those types of things within this police department, because it is pretty traumatic for everybody involved. And you know, these types of incidents never leave your mind when you see them and when you have to respond to them and investigate. That's why I also want to give a huge thank you to our investigators, because not only did they have to respond and see this, they had to, every day they're living this case over and over again. So it's tough, but you know, 4 lives were lost. So, you know, as tough as it is for us who are here to still talk about this, 4 lives were lost. And I think that's what is on everybody's heart, that the tragic loss of 4 lives.
You said the cause being gross negligence and speed. So can you speak to the public about driving out there? People want change, they want safety, they want to feel like they can bike, they walk their kids to school in that area. Can you speak to drivers out there as the chief as to safety on the road?
Well, as cliche as this may sound, speed kills, and we know this. A lot of our enforcement focuses on speed, and the word to the drivers out there is slow down. You know, this particularly in this situation, this is a residential area. There's a public transportation site there. There's, you know, a library there. There's people everywhere. There's restaurants, but that's all over the city. And so my ask and my advice from a professional point of view is slow down. You know, it's better to get there a few minutes late than not to get there at all. And, you know, people say that, and it probably doesn't resonate until they get into an accident or somebody gets hurt or killed, or, you know, those types of things happen. We know that speed is a killer. And I will say, you know, we have a traffic camera program coming online. Hopefully that'll do some good. Our officers are out there really focusing on speed and the things that, the violations that really cause injury collisions, and we'll continue to do that. But it's not about just all enforcement. You know, we have a responsibility as drivers to have a conscience and be responsible, and driving recklessly, you know, doesn't feel that responsibility. So you know, when we get our driver's license, you know, we can't always say that there's going to be a police officer standing over our shoulder enforcing the law. We need to take some responsibility and slow down. Thank you.
I'm good when everybody else is. Kelsey, I may tap these.
I know.
I'm okay. We're good.
Sorry.
Can you switch sides with me?
You okay? You
Yeah,
comfortable?
we're good. I'm trying to get low. Trying to get low.
Surfing.
We're gonna
Yeah.
like had a hard workout this morning.
Yeah.
Dying.
I'm ready, sorry, thanks.
Okay, Supervisor, I know that this is your district that you represent. You've been really close throughout this case. How do you feel about these charges that were announced today?
I am relieved that the family will get some closure, at least on this aspect of this horrific crash. And I am grateful that the community also has closure, in that we know that the justice system will set in motion what needs to happen when somebody behaves like this.
It's a long wait for a lot of people.
It's a long wait, but I also, as the district attorney says, would rather take the time to dot every I and cross every T and have a case that stands